25, I legit had what John Mayer calls a quarter life crisis.
Oh, yeah.
It was like he wrote that so perfectly well.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what have I accomplished? What have I
Because
done?
you feel like you're 50.
Yes. And
It's
you were supposed
crazy.
to have done things.
Yeah.
And you haven't. You're like, I don't know. And so I remember feeling like that was crummy. I got divorced at 25. I got married at 24, divorced at 25. And so then, yeah, something about 26, 27, you know you don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But you also are like, this is fine.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
And I feel like it's always, right? I wish I could go back to 25 with the lens that I have now and just be like the amount of unseriousness I feel like I would do.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And you know what I think is great about kids these days?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just showed my 44 years. But I do think it's funny that I really think that one of the good things is that we have learned that, and I think we're teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
That there's more of this like, go do fun things.
Yeah.
You have your whole life to be a serious grown-up.
Yep.
I'm not there yet either. But
no, and I hope I never become a serious grown-up.
No.
I don't want to.
I don't either.
I think that's why, so I've got 2 kids. I've got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the amount of people who are like in awe that we travel with them, like abroad. Like we do Thanksgiving with my husband's side of the family, and we go international. And so that started before we had kids. So the only years that I've missed are like the years that I've had babies, because they're both like October, November.
yeah.
And so like the oldest one, her first trip was to Costa Rica. We've been to Costa Rica, Spain. We've been to Mexico City. We just did Tulum with the youngest one. So that was her first passport stamp. And so people are just like, I don't understand how. And the whole point is this is like, just travel with them. It's often people like to project their own anxieties on traveling with kids. Like they're so resilient.
Mm-hmm.
And I made this, like when we went to Mexico City when my daughter was 3, we went to one of like the top rated restaurants in Mexico City. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was like 6 courses, right? Like we were there for a long time.
Yeah.
And so people are like, I cannot believe you did that. And I was like, she was so good for the majority of the time. We had the iPad for that last 45-minute hour stretch, because that's a lot of like meals. But like we played games, we did things. What I tell parents all the time who are like fearful or anxious about traveling, I'm like, listen, they're going to have meltdowns at your home. I'd rather have a meltdown with a view, because they're going to get over it.
I really love this. I do think it's good. It's good, like, for anyone, honestly. It's a reminder for me too. So I don't have kids. I have a dog, and he is my child. And I have often wondered about traveling with him. And I know it's actually not him that we have to worry about. It is that he will know I'm anxious.
Uh-huh.
And he'll totally project that out in the world. And so I have never put him on an airplane. He's great in a car because we've got our vibes. But it is funny that I think they do pick up on like whatever we put out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
animal and kids are the exact same.
Yeah. I think in that way they
are. Really
because they're like, we're supposed to be anxious now. Let me show you what that tantrum looks like.
Yeah. And it's just worse for everybody.
Yes. But also, I think it's funny because like as somebody with no kids, I have a lot of empathy for parents traveling with kids. And I think that that's something that parents forget is like, I think that parents who haven't done like you and done all the international trips, like they might look at it and go, okay, I don't want to be disruptive to other people.
Yeah.
And we genuinely don't care. Yeah. And the people who do care can take a hike.
Yeah.
They're not who we're after here.
I'm an Enneagram 8. And so sometimes there are like moments where I'm like, I'm in a fighting mood. I wish somebody would say something to me because I'm like ready.
Yes, you're like, let's go. I'm a Sagittarius and we also have that energy.
Yes, I know. It was like, we have to keep it in check sometimes. But it's interesting because like most other countries delight in children.
Yeah.
And they love to see them around. Like when we were in Spain, there was like random, like grandmas and stuff like coming to like pat my kids on the head or a child. And I had one then. And like here you'd be like, please don't touch my child. But they're just like, they're so happy to see them out and about. And because children are part of society, like there would be no society if there were no children.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the fun part about traveling internationally is that you're like, oh, if only everybody was like, and like, I think there's a time and a place for children. And I think it's most places, but there are some times where you're like, no, this is a child-free zone. And trust me, I love those places too, right? Like leave them at home.
Yeah.
But I think like out and about when, like you said, people who aren't disturbed by them, I think is nice because it's like, they're here, they're part of it.
Yeah, it's so great. And I think it's fun too that like, gosh, we've really gone off on a funny little tangent that we didn't think. We'll get to the real stuff in a minute. But I I remember being in Paris when I was in high school, and there was a family at a table beside us at a restaurant. It's funny. I have not thought about this child in forever. I wonder where this child is. Cutest little munchkin, probably like 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up sitting with me most of the meal. And there was this funny thing that like the families really didn't speak to each other, spoke different languages, came from different places. But like I was really happy to be the babysitter for the night. It was super fun for me. And the family was enjoying life. And there was no stress of like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not scared of people in the same way. I don't know what that is here, but it's funny that I just thought of that. And I'm like, gosh, you know, it is fun to just embrace the people around you. We don't really do that here as much.
Yeah. One of my favorite lyrics is from a Michael Franti song, and it's "The more I see, the less I know." And I feel like that's what the privilege of travel gets you, is that it just broadens so much. And it's like you think you know by living in your little bubble, but when you get outside of that, there is so much more. There's culture, there's people, there's, you know, just so much to be taken in.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fun part too for kids to experience. And they're seeing different cultures and understanding and holding space for that. So
I love it. They will be such cool kids because of it.
I hope so.
I think it really does change perspective.
Yeah.
I know travel has changed mine. I mean, I wish everyone could do it. I wish it was required, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yes,
leave your four
absolutely.
walls, leave your state.
Yeah, it really should be just like a foreign exchange program, but that's mandatory.
Yes.
Like go someplace.
Yes. Okay. Let's put that on our list of
Yeah, there
our
we
wish
go.
list. Yeah. So Rosa, I'm so happy that you're here. I feel like this is actually such a perfect way to connect, like even just starting with these funny conversations, because it really does kind of symbolize who I feel like you are from what I know about you. And so just to kind of give people a little bit of like what you do, I think it's very cool. So your company is called, you know, do you say semi or semi-mindful?
I say semi-mindful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered if this is like where we're from. Do we say it differently? But
It could be tomato,
Could be.
tomato. It's all the same
I
meaning.
know,
Yeah.
right? An aunt and an aunt. But okay, so semi-mindful.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about like when you started your company and what you're doing.
Yeah. So I have a previous company called Workplace Stress Solution, and that was really much more corporate focused. So I lead stress management workshops, goal setting, the local level here in Nashville would staff yoga, any kind of movement classes, meditation for conferences that would come in. And I realized that there is this shift happening. And I wanted to take all that, but kind of rebrand it and repackage it for more of a consumer, but really working with businesses and brands in this wellness space to create these immersive wellness activations. And I think that when it comes to, so I say that, you know, the intersection of real life and everyone's wellness ritual or desired wellness ritual is our favorite brands and businesses. You know, I think about the water that we have. Why do we pick what? Who do we attract? We were talking about your shoes, right? That is all part of the ritual. And I think people are demanding a little bit more out of the companies that they invest their dollars in. And they want to make sure that, you know, they care about me as much as I care about them. And I think there's a really beautiful way to do that. And I wanted to be one of the ones to help produce that and bring that about. The whole idea of semi-mindful is a little bit of a play on what it is, because I teach mindfulness, and that's threaded and woven throughout everything that I do. Mindfulness is simply the act of being present, paying attention on purpose. So whenever I teach that, people are like, oh, you know, I'm already trying to make sure I drink enough water, get enough sleep. Women are eat enough protein, like all of the things. And so when I'm like, okay, well, how about a mindfulness practice on top of that? They're like, that's one more thing. So I kind of jokingly say, if you can't be fully mindful, can you be semi-mindful?
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it's all mindfulness. Whether it's a little bit or a lot of it, it is still mindfulness. And so I kind of wanted to make that play on the terminology of just being like, what if you just, you know, took a little beat for a minute and then got to be fully present? And how do we ingrain that into our daily lives?
I love it. And honestly, I think it's such a cool name for a company in the right now that we're living in, because you're right. Like we do feel sometimes like I just don't know if I can add anything else. There's a reason that there are the trends of like my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5 and things like that, right? Because it's like there's so much going on. But I like the idea that you make it a little more accessible. It's like, okay, I can try this. I can do this.
Yeah.
So,
just be semi-mindful, right?
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of the pressure off.
It does.
But in reality, you're doing the thing. So once you can kind of get that pressure removed, it feels a lot more accessible.
Yeah. And I think with these days, with everything we have going on, you mentioned a couple of things, burnout, stress management. And I feel like at the beginning of a new year, that's something that we're all kind of thinking about, right? Like, what did we do last year that we want to do again? What do we want to let go of? What can we improve? And I think burnout is a hot topic.
Yeah.
So as you're working with companies and individuals on stress management and burnout, what's some good advice that, like, if someone wants to start being semi-mindful, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring something into my everyday. How do you start doing that?
Yeah. I always tell people it's always not a matter of if the stress is going to happen, but when it's going to happen. Because stress is inevitable. Our bodies are designed to handle and carry the stress, but so many of us are living in this chronic state where we're not dealing with it. And that is what's leading to a lot of the burnout, the chronic, sleep issues, the chronic health issues. And burnout too is one of those phrases that are tossed around a lot, very much like mindfulness, right? But what exactly does it mean? Because I think giving things the proper language is really important. And so making sure that, are we truly down the road to burnout, or are we just in a hyper stress season? Because burnout is a clinical term. It is hard stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200. It's usually meaning you're no longer able to function in your life and your job, and you really have to take a step back. And that is not anything that I ever want to see anybody to. And so what are these points that we can create along the way to notice what are our stress styles? When do they come up? Our bodies like to give us little pings along the way. And I always tell people, you have to choose your day of rest or else your body will choose it for you.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice.
It'll
But
tell
people
you.
don't do it.
And I jokingly say in a lot of my workshops, most people wear smartwatches and it pings you, right? Time to stand up. And you're like, nope, don't tell me what to do, technology. And it's because you've been sitting too long. You've been sitting in that L shape, and that's going to be a detriment to you. So instead of, ignoring that, use that as a tool. Be like, okay, let me just go look outside for a minute. Let me have a drink of water, because we start to ignore the basic human instinct of needing to eat, needing to drink, needing to go to the bathroom. And when we do those things, we start to, hunch over throughout the day. The jaw starts to tighten. The shoulders like to work their way up to the ears. And then we get to the end of the day and it's like, why do we feel so sore and so achy? And it's because you haven't moved, you haven't done anything. So the body's always going to give you little cues. And if you listen to them, you can kind of have that check and say, all right, it's time for me to breathe. Because that's another thing. Our breath is such a powerful tool, and it's a free one, which is my favorite kind of tools. But we will sometimes you realize you're holding your breath. And you have to take this big gulp of air again, where we're ignoring that basic survival instinct in lieu of the stress or the stressor. So I think the biggest thing is noticing your own stress style, figuring that out so that way you can see when those things are happening and paying attention to those, and not just paying attention, but acting on those.
And so for someone who, like, if you're thinking about noticing your stress style, how do you... I'm going to go exaggerated for a minute, because I really do think that there are some people who, a lot of us live in a heightened state of stress all the time. And it might have been going on for so long that you don't even know how to recognize that.
Yeah.
So how does someone say to themselves, like, okay, I'm going to start looking at what stresses me out? Like, is it looking at certain things or paying attention to your body? How do you start?
I tell people, take an audit of your day.
Okay.
Think through the moment you wake up and kind of just your normal arcs of your day, because we tend to have a similar flow, even if our day-to-days look different. And then start to keep a journal kind of that first week and being like, oh, I've noticed that every day after lunch, when I have to go back and check all my unread emails, that's when I'm feeling that heightened stress. Or first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is reach for my phone and I immediately check my emails. I tell people sometimes, ignorance is bliss. Can you give yourself 5 minutes? Let your feet hit the floor before you reach for the phone. For some people, they're like, no, it causes me more anxiety to not know, versus, no, I can do 5 minutes. I can just not know, because it's going to be there, and that 5 minutes is going to make a difference. Go make a cup of coffee, then come back. And then maybe it goes 10 minutes, right? Maybe it's, and so you can kind of like progress as you get a little bit more comfortable. But I think it's first noticing what those triggers are throughout the day. And you can only do that by just following your normal arc and getting curious about your day.
Yeah.
And getting curious about, what are those stressors things? I always tell people, is it temporary? Is it an ongoing stressor? Or is it self-inflicted?
Yeah.
That's the biggest one that we're like, oh, we do it to ourselves sometimes. And to your point about that we've been in this heightened stress for so long that sometimes we don't know how to operate out of that. Like, right, things are calm. Something I must have forgotten or something, or we just can't function in just like that state of calm. There always has to be something. And I think there's a difference between stress versus needing that, productive action.
Yeah, I mean, I really do feel like it's learned in a lot of ways, like, because you have to unlearn first. That is such a good point about like that how you're going through the day with all of these things. And so then if you sit still, it's the what have I forgotten? What's not being done? I should be doing X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
But if you can start unlearning a little bit of that, I've been on a journey to unlearn this. I feel like probably my whole life as a type A oldest child Sagittarius, you know, because it's hard to sit still and feel like, because I feel like I'm needing to be productive all the time.
Yeah.
But I do feel like just the little things like, and I think you're right too about the noticing, can you go 5 minutes or does that stress you out more without looking at those notifications? One for me was notifications like on your phone, right? You have the little number that says the notifications. Which ones of those can I let go? Can I turn notifications off and feel better about it? And then which ones do I feel like that'll stress me out more? Learning these things is hard, but is that kind of part of it?
It is. And I think it's better to work in little pockets.
Okay.
Where I feel like it always happens around New Year's too, right? We want to have this laundry list of things that we're doing, but we kind of set ourselves up for failure because we have all these things. Let's say we put down 20 lists. Here's what I want to accomplish. We don't make a plan. And then we get to about this, around the end of the year, and we get our feelings hurt because we've let ourselves down in a sense when really we just didn't set ourselves up for success. And so it's finding what thing do I want to focus on? What are those little pockets, right? Instead of being like, I'm going to turn off my notifications all day today. Can it be for lunchtime, I'm going to step away from my place of work. If you work from home, it means just go to the kitchen table. It goes someplace else. Can I set my alarm for 30 minutes and just let that be?
That's a good one. I like that.
It's the small things that were what I feel like drives that, almost that habit stacking on top of it. So it's going, okay, I can do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I can do 15 minutes instead of being like, well, I'm going to turn them all off for a day because that's going to cause a lot of anxiety.
Right.
But can you have small pockets of opportunities to be able to do that? And then in that, especially in the evenings, can you kind of have a wind down time? Thankfully, our smartphones do allow for us to really manage what notifications we allow into our lives and which ones are out there.
Yeah. And it is learning. Again, it's like baby steps, especially for those who've either lived in high stress or you just start life like that, like I did, where the do not disturb on an iPhone is a funny thing for me because when it first came out, I was like, I will never use this. Never. What would that be?
Yeah.
There's a lot of anxiety with that with me. However, now I know when it works for me. And I think you're right. Like just learning that it's like, oh, cool. I can use that tool in a way that works for me,
Yeah.
And I like that we're doing it more. I lived in Germany for a couple of years and I was just telling someone this story. This is funny timing.
It was Tiffany. I was just listening to that episode beforehand.
Oh, yes. Well, I was funny enough. I was just talking about it this morning with somebody about how the work-life balance in Germany is so, people are like, what do you miss about your German life? And that is one of them.
Yeah.
Because on Sundays, stores are closed. So on Saturday morning, you get up, you shop your groceries for the week. You get all your errands done. And on Sunday, it is a day of rest. And it's heavenly.
Yeah.
But you don't feel bad about it because everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
There is something about that collective that helps. So, I think for people who struggle with that, like kids now have sports on Sundays and things like this, like how do you start trying to build that in, especially with a family and even teaching your kids to take a minute? Like what do you think for moms that are busy with the running around and all of the things? Like what's the best thing they can do to start?
So I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I have friends who have their kids in like 3 different things. For me, I'm so protective of my time that I am not ready, selfishly, to give up my weekends yet. And so my daughter was in gymnastics on a Wednesday for 1 hour, and that was her one thing. Because I know as they get older, they're going to be in more sports there, and that's really going to take the time. I just have a hard time having a 5-year-old take all of my time right now. When that's our family time on the weekends. And there's going to be a time and place for it. So I think it's also though we battle that expectation from society that they have to be in everything.
Yeah.
When the reality is that they don't. And they're not going to be any the wiser if they're not in soccer, if they're not in ballet, if they're not in this. But like, let them explore one thing and let it be easy.
Yeah. It's really good advice because then they learn that pace at a really young age too.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, to not learn the crazy.
Yeah. And it really is kind of that, you talk about Europe. I got to a lifetime of a career ago work a lot in Europe as well. And it's a entirely different culture. There, if you send an email, if you get a reply back the same day or the next day, that's considered good. Where it's here, if you don't get a reply back in 5 minutes, you're going, "Ooh, well, what? Did they not see it?" And then it's a whole different thing. And so being able to have that cultural shift of going, this is just the collective expectation that on Sundays is truly a day of rest. Everybody just has to readjust how they live life, which is do your things on Saturday and then we rest on this day. And I think that's why a little bit they're better off for that, because they're given that permission as society versus, hey, here's all your shortcomings, or here's all the way that you're not being productive. And I think as people who are high achievers, that's a big part too, because that comes from our childhood, right? It's kind of that little, I remember sometimes I have to check myself if I'm just sitting at home reading a book, just because I want to read a book, that if I hear my husband coming around, I have to fight sometimes that knee-jerk reaction of like needing to get up and like pretend to do something like I did at home. Like, no, I'm actually doing my chores, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, I'm like, I'm a grown person and we live here and I'm allowed to rest because I don't have to earn my rest.
Oh my gosh, I really want that one in all bold. That is such a really good, because I do think that's real. That like whether you see it with someone in your house or you see it on social media, it's this like instant fear of I'm not doing enough. And I just need us all to take a beat.
Yeah.
Like just calm down. What did you say? You have earned the right to rest?
Yeah. Like, you had to do all your stuff beforehand to just be able to rest.
Yeah. And it's so crazy. I think what's really funny for me personally is that I'm very, like I pick up on other people's energy. So if I work with those people who are like, we're going to run hard and we're going to go all day and we're not going to, it's a badge of honor to never take a bathroom break, then I do feel the need to keep up, if you will. And it's not my best work. Like you're not, as someone who works with me, you're not going to get the best of me like that. And so it's also been cool as you get older. I guess that is one of the places where I'm my real age, because you start to recognize that about yourself. You're like, no, the best me is going to take that break to walk my dog for 10 minutes, a couple of times a day. And it's not a badge of honor to sit here all day and never leave my desk. Like we need to stop praising that.
It is. And people for so long wore burnout as that badge of honor. But who benefits from the burnout?
Yeah.
Nobody, least of all yourself, because we all have, we have people that maybe we're caretakers for, maybe there are people in our lives. But even if we don't have any of that, who are we if everything falls apart? We do a disservice to ourselves to kind of give ourselves that break of that executive function. It's kind of like why we get those brilliant ideas when we're in the shower, or when we're getting ready to go to sleep at night, or when we're on autopilot driving someplace and you don't even remember the drive on how you got there because your brain was so checked out because it was just in dire need of a minute.
Yeah.
And I think when we can recognize that actually taking that time for ourselves to making sure that we are sustained, that's how everyone else is going to receive our best work.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so this is where if I'm sitting here listening to this, right, I'm thinking, well, this sounds really good and I want to do all of this, but I work for a company, and then we fill in the blanks, right? Because there's always a but here. And I've worked for those companies where it makes it hard to live in a way that we're talking about. So for people, like I love this part of what you do too, because you actually then flip it and work with the companies directly.
Yeah.
So for people who are struggling to have that balance and it's maybe more embedded in their company culture, there is hope because you're doing it. You're doing the hard work. How do you start those conversations with companies to get them on this path of understanding what you just said, that like burnout actually, it helps no one?
Yeah. That's a great question. And that's really kind of where my journey and all of that started, was because I wanted to support people in that capacity. I realized from the pandemic, people were sitting at home by themselves with their own thoughts for the first time, which if sometimes can be a very scary place to be, alone with your own thoughts,
Yeah.
right? I always jokingly use that little phrase from Mean Girls where it's like, have you ever been personally victimized by your own thoughts before? And you're like, yes, right here.
Yes.
And I realize that stress is really the undertone of everything, unmanaged stress. And I wanted to support people in the workplace with that because there is that performative that they have to keep up, that they have to do this and that you can't take a break. But I feel like sometimes that's what has to happen is there have to be those internal champions who go, let's make everybody better for this. The happiest companies are the ones that have that flexibility, that have that autonomy. And it's having that permission to have a little bit of space. It's going, do we need to have back-to-back meetings? Or can we say, nope, we're just going to have 45-minute meetings. There's going to be a 15-minute buffer where they can just go and breathe for a minute. They can go to the bathroom, have a snack, and then we can put it on to the next one. Whereas we were getting in this like, oh, back-to-back, like every hour is a meeting. You're rushing there. You're late to one. You're not present for the other. And so you're playing catch up because you're running behind. And then nobody benefits from that. So working those intentional times in is what really helps in those places. When we saw the shift to a lot of people working at home, for a lot of people, that was a moment of levity, but a lot of people, it actually became a little bit more stressful because that was really back-to-back meetings. They were stacked right on top of each other. You've realized you've been sitting for 3 hours, and there is such thing as Zoom fatigue.
Yes, there is.
Being in front of that screen for that long, forgetting that, oh, I'm actually in my own space. I do have the permission to get up. But you want to kind of double down and show, no, I'm working at home. I'm working extra hard versus, look, I can have the space to do it all. I can go throw in the load of laundry. I can go walk my dog for, 15 minutes. I can take that break. But it's giving that permission. But really, it's having that internal champion who is going to give that permission to their employees and to support them in that capacity. And I work with a lot of companies who are starting to, or that is ingrained in their ethos, because it's really hard to push that rock up a hill for companies that don't get it. And unfortunately, those are going to self-implode in on themselves. There's going to be people that leave. There's going to be something always happens. I've seen it time and time and again. But when there's those people who are those internal champions who are going, look, let's do the best for our employees. Because what I tell the employees is at the end of the day, they're the only ones who are going to look after their best interest. And our families deserve the best of us, not just the rest of us.
Yeah.
And if you are giving, and their work deserves the best of us too. But often who suffers from the constant give is the families. And then you have that spillover both ways, right? So everything that has been building up in the workplace gets taken out on the family. Or and it works vice versa too. Anything that's, tumultuous at home too, it can spill out into the workplace as well. But usually it's workplace spills over into family life. And that's not fair to them either. Nobody should be able to control all of that emotion. If you've ever felt like you've had to walk on eggshells around people because you just kind of gain it. I've done workshops where people have said, I've had bosses that the moment they walk in the building, you know exactly what kind of day you're going to have. It's like nobody should have that much emotional control over a workplace.
Well, and I do feel like if someone is listening to this as a people manager or an owner of their company, I think you've made some really good points. That the Zoom fatigue is real, and the back-to-back meetings, giving people that time that we used to have to walk in between meetings, it's really important to give that back. Because you're not your best self. I read a study at one point in like 2021 or 2022 where they had talked about the Zoom fatigue. They actually, had the little things all over the people's brains and said, let's study these. And it was after, I think, 3 meetings that the cognitive decline starts going. And when you get to those 7 or 8 Zoom meetings a day, the people are not actually able to retain information. We're not communicating effectively. And I've sent that to a lot of leaders because I'm like, if you want the best out of everyone around you, you've got to give their brains a break. And the video fatigue is very real. But the other thing I think is interesting is that you said that about the people that were kind of at home for the first time, and some of them still are. There's an interesting thing with extroverts with that too, right? Because we've now lost a sense of community.
Yeah.
So you're working harder with these back-to-back meetings, but you're also missing that in-between time where I can say to you, hey, Rosa, how was your weekend?
Yeah, the water cooler time.
Yeah.
There's not that. And that is kind of to circle back, to why I started the semi-mindful division of it, is because I think people are wanting so much of that community because they had to be home for so long, and it really shifted the way that we thought about things and how we interacted and engaged with people. And I think we're course correcting a little bit back to wanting that community, back into safe places and safe spaces for people, especially women. And it felt very affirming because actually once I kind of soft launched the company, Condé Nast Travel put out put out a thing that was like, wellness tourism and wellness travel is going to be this next $1 trillion. And I was like, I will take just a sliver of that pie, please. I'm not trying to be greedy, just a sliver.
There's enough to go around.
But it all circled back to that, intuitive hit of being like, the workshops that I've done with people, the friends that I keep, the things that they're attracted to, the companies and brands that I follow, they're wanting to come back and re-engage with community, but not just in a superficial way.
Yeah.
They really, I feel like, want to go deep and be very intentional and be very immersive. And they want it to be this transaction of being like, I see your time and energy, and I want to show you the value of that as well.
I really like hearing that we're on a path to that. I think it's really important. I hope that sometimes you do have to go all the way to the edge to realize that you need to turn around and change some things.
Yeah.
So I'm excited that you're part of this. I'm so happy to have connected with you because I want people to follow you on socials. You post some great things. Tell me what your social is. Tell me your Instagram.
Yeah. So my personal one is Wellbeing with Rosa. So if you want to see parenting, house renovations, all the fun stuff I do in between all of that, follow me there for everything business, brand, wellness activation wise. It's semi-mindful on Instagram. I haven't gone down the TikTok route yet.
Same.
I just am like, I only have capacity for one thing, and I'm going to do that the best of my ability there.
I appreciate that honesty, and I think everybody else will too, because that is real. It's like, I think it's funny. I had this moment in the last 10 days probably where we want to do it all. We really do. And especially as an entrepreneur, as somebody who is a go-getter, you're like, I want to do it all. And then you realize that most of those people that are really kicking ass on every platform, they have a team.
They have a whole team.
They have a whole team.
Yes. And I would love to have a team one day, but right now it's just me. It's me. I'm the team.
So that's okay. And I think I love that. So it's a good lesson for people to remind themselves, right? Like, don't forget that what you see is not always just the one person. It's most often not.
Exactly.
And do what we can.
Yeah. And I have a friend who she's always like, well, this was on TikTok 5 days ago. And I was like, but I did it. But did I see it? I saw it on Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
So it still counts.
It still counts. Exactly. So I really appreciate your time today. I have to ask, you've had some great life advice, but I love to ask everybody if you have life advice for us to share. So what is your best life advice in 3 words or less?
I always go back to have the audacity.
Love that.
Have the audacity to try. Have the audacity to fail. It kind of goes back. I have a talk too called Fearless, and I think people are not afraid of failure like they try to mask that they are. I was like, we've all failed before. We know what that feels like. Failure is comfortable. It's safe. It means that we don't have to grow in that capacity. But that fear of success, going out and doing something, taking that risk, even if that means I just want to change up my self-care routine, or if I just want to practice a little bit of mindfulness or whatever that might be for them, whether it's going off and wanting to start something new, have the audacity to try. I think that fear of success is what stops so many people from even trying, because if they do succeed, how does that mean they have to change their whole lives?
I think that's a whole different episode that we can do and we should do, because you're right. I think people are going to hear that and go, fear of success. That's not scary.
It is scary
because the change that comes with it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's all the change in, everything that we kind of talked about from start to finish of, is it your wellness? What does it mean to kind of take that back and be empowered by that?
Yeah.
Is it something big? Is it something small? It's all of it. So I always say, just have the audacity to do what you want, to try.
Yeah. I love that. It's such a good way to end this. So thank you so much. I think people are going to love hearing from you and following your journey. And yeah, maybe we'll see you on another episode to talk about the fear of success. Stay tuned.
A whole nother one. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Sometimes a girl's gotta find her way on her own, free to roam and make mistakes.